Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going deep on Stand By Me.
Ooh, a classic.
It really is, and we've got a great plot summary to work with here. But I kind of want to go beyond just like what happens.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everybody remembers the leeches, right? But why does this film stick with us? Why is it still so powerful all these years later?
That's what we're gonna find out today. So
I think one thing that makes Stand By Me so fascinating is it doesn't shy away from some of the some of the darker parts of being a kid, right?
absolutely.
Like it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's got that mix of adventure and fear and joy and grief and all those really complicated emotions that come with growing up, when you're starting to realize the world isn't quite as simple as you thought it was when you were little.
And you see all that playing out with the four main characters, right? Gordy, Chris, Teddy, and Vern.
Oh, yeah, such iconic characters. Each one of them is dealing with their own stuff. Gordy's lost his brother.
Yeah, he can't seem to connect with his parents at all.
Right, like they're grieving too, but they're just shut down.
And Chris, I mean, talk about a tough situation.
He's trying so hard to break free from his family's reputation. Like
Well,
to prove he's not just another bad seed.
and then there's Teddy.
Yeah,
Man,
oh, Teddy, he's just got so much anger. You can see how much his dad's abuse has messed him up.
it's heartbreaking, really.
And Vern, I mean, he's the comic relief a lot of the
Oh,
time.
yeah, he's got the best lines.
But even he has these moments where you see he's just as scared and vulnerable as the others.
Right, like he's putting on a brave face, but he's still just a kid.
Exactly. They're all just kids. And then they set out on this quest to find Ray Brower's body, and that really becomes the catalyst for so much growth.
Oh, totally. It pushes them to their limits physically and emotionally.
Think about that scene where they're walking along the train tracks and that train comes barreling towards them.
Oh, man, so intense.
It's like this perfect visual metaphor for the dangers they're facing, both external and internal, right? Like they're literally on this narrow path with danger on either side.
And it's such a great example of how Reiner builds suspense, too. Like you're right there with them feeling that fear.
Absolutely. And it just taps into that feeling of being on the edge of something unknown and maybe dangerous, which is such a big part of growing up.
Okay, but let's not forget about the junkyard scene with Chopper the dog.
Oh, Chopper. I mean, that whole sick balls misunderstanding is hilarious.
So funny.
But underneath the humor, there's real danger there, too. Like, these kids aren't invincible. Bad things could happen to them.
Yeah, for sure. It's not all fun and games.
Hmm.
And then there's that swamp.
Ugh, the leeches. Talk about a visceral
I
experience.
still get the creeps thinking about it.
It's uncomfortable, it's gross, but it also shows how resilient these kids are. They stick together no matter what.
And maybe it's kind of like a metaphor for growing up too, right? Like sometimes you got to wade through some muck to get to the other side.
Yeah, I like that. And this whole journey, all these crazy experiences they share, it's what really binds them together.
It's more than just having fun, right? They're facing challenges, overcoming fears, learning to rely on each other.
It's the essence of true friendship, being there for each other through thick and thin, good times and bad times, laughter and tears. And Stand By Me captures that so beautifully. And it's not just those external challenges, right? The film also digs into what these boys are going through on the inside.
Oh yeah, especially the theme of loss and grief.
Right. Like Gordy's whole journey is so powerful because of that.
Totally. He's haunted by his brother's death.
And he feels like he's letting everybody down.
And the film doesn't shy away from those raw emotions. I mean, that scene where Gardy breaks down after they find Ray Brower's body. Oh man,
Oh, it gets me every time.
just gut-wrenching.
And for Gordy, it's like this turning point. He's confronting the reality of death.
Right, and finally letting himself grieve.
All that pent-up emotion just comes pouring out.
And I love how Reiner uses all these cinematic techniques to show us Gordy's inner world.
Oh, absolutely. Like the close-ups on his face,
And the music swelling in the background.
it just pulls you right in and you feel everything he's feeling.
It's masterful filmmaking.
Reiner really knows how to use the language of film to make you feel something.
He does it in the lighter moments too. Like, okay, we got to talk about Gordy's lard-ass Hogan story.
Oh my God, that story.
Hilarious, gross, classic.
It's just so perfectly captures that kind of boyish humor.
Totally. But it also says a lot about their friendship, right? Like
Yeah.
how they use humor to bond and to deal with uncomfortable stuff.
Exactly. And the way these boys talk to each other feels so real.
Yeah, it's not forced at all.
The dialogue is so natural, the teasing, even when they're fighting, you can still sense that bond between them.
And I think a lot of that comes down to the actors, too.
Oh, the casting is perfect. River Phoenix as Gordy, I mean,
He's incredible. So much depth and sensitivity.
and Will Wheaton as Chris. He really shows that conflict Chris is feeling, trying to be better than what people expect of him.
For sure. And we can't forget Corey Feldman and Jerry O'Connell as Teddy and Vern.
They both bring so much to the group dynamic.
They're all so good together.
And then you've got that scene with Ace Merrill and his gang.
That's a tense one.
Oh, yeah. Talk about a showdown. And you see Chris's courage there.
And how fiercely loyal Gordy is to his friends.
Like these boys who were just goofing off minutes ago are suddenly standing up to a real threat.
And Kiefer Sutherland as Ace is just terrifying.
He's like this embodiment of everything dangerous in the adult world, Like a warning sign for what these boys are about to face.
And that confrontation is such a turning point.
It forces them to grow up, to confront their fears, and to realize that choices have consequences.
And this brings us to that central theme of coming of age.
Right, like this whole quest to find Ray Brower's body becomes this metaphor for the bigger journey they're all on.
From childhood to adolescence.
You see them starting to question authority, to think about their own mortality.
Yeah, to understand how messy relationships can be.
And the film doesn't sugarcoat any of it.
No, it shows the bittersweet reality of growing up.
That loss of innocence.
The realization that life isn't always fair or predictable.
But even with all that darkness, there's also this sense of hope.
Yeah, that comes from their friendship.
Exactly. And ultimately, that's what Stand By Me is really about, right? The enduring power of those bonds we form when we're young.
And then the film jumps ahead, right?
Yeah.
Shows us what happens to the guys as adults.
Yeah, you get those glimpses into their lives.
It's kind of sad, though, seeing how their paths diverge.
Yeah, that's realistic, though, isn't it? Friendships change, people move on. But those early friendships can still have such a big impact on who we become.
It makes you think about your own life,
Absolutely. And it's interesting how the whole film is framed as a story that Gordy is writing.
Right, like he's looking back on these events from his childhood and trying to make sense of them.
Yeah, it shows how powerful storytelling can be, right? Like a way to process your experiences, to deal with tough emotions, even to connect with other people.
It's like he's saying that the stories we tell ourselves and the stories we share can shape how we see our whole lives.
Exactly. And that's part of what makes Stand By Me so powerful, I think.
It's become such a classic. Why do you think it still resonates with people after all these years?
Well, for one thing, it deals with these universal themes, right? Friendship, growing up, memory.
Yeah, those are things everyone can relate to.
We've all had those childhood experiences that stay with us, those friendships that shape who we are.
Even if those friendships have changed or faded over time.
Right. And I think the film captures a specific time and place, but the themes are timeless,
Right. No matter who you are or where you come from, we all experience joy and sadness and loss.
And that need for connection.
And the film's success also has to do with how authentic it feels, right?
Absolutely. The
Yeah.
characters, the dialogue, the
It
emotions,
just feels real.
like a story that could have happened to anyone.
So as we wrap up here, what's one thing you hope people take away from our deep dive into Stand By Me?
I'd say it's a reminder to cherish those friendships that shaped us when we were young. Like, reach out to those friends, talk about the good old days, recognize how much they influenced who you are.
And if you're lucky enough to still have those friends in your life, make sure they know how much they mean to you.
That's a great point. Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into Stand By Me.
Hope you enjoyed it.
We had a blast talking about this one.
Yeah, it's a classic for a reason. If this episode made you think about your own childhood friends, let us know in the comments. We always love hearing from you.
And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into your favorite films. Until next time, happy watching.